This lesson is about classified balance sheets. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify which accounts are current assets and which are long-term assets, and define and identify current liabilities and long-term liabilities, and prepare a classified balance sheet. Let's start with how classified balance sheets are different from basic balance sheets. Assets and liabilities are classified into current or short-term and non-current or long-term categories in a classified balance sheet. All classified really means is categorizing some subsets to make the information a little more useful. Current assets are assets that are either already cash, like the cash account, or are expected to be converted into cash within 1 year. We'll see some examples shortly. Non-current assets are those that are not expected to be converted to cash within 1 year. Long-term assets are owned for the purpose of running the company. The company does not expect to sell them and turn them back into cash. Current liabilities are those debts that must be paid within 1 year of the balance sheet. And non-current liabilities are liabilities or debts that don't have to be paid within the next year. Note that we do not classify equity accounts in the same way that we do classify assets and we do classify liabilities. For the next few slides, we're going to look at different kinds of financial statement users' decisions that might be based on elements of classified balance sheets. Let's start with investors. When you think about what an investor wants to know about a company, the classified balance sheet could provide very interesting information to them about how their money might be used. If the only reason a company wants you to invest $10,000 in cash in their company is so they can pay their existing bills, what will the company do as soon as they use up your $10,000? That's not a great sign for the future. So a potential investor is very interested in a company's cash and near cash, which we call current assets, compared with the company's current liabilities. If the company you're considering investing in has no problem paying its bills right now, then you might move on to an interest in its longer-term bills or long-term liabilities. Next, let's think about lenders. Lenders are people at banks who try to decide whether to give the company a loan. A lender might use a classified balance sheet to determine if the company that wants to borrow money will be able to repay the debt. Part of the decision is based on how much money the company already owes in debt, and particularly how much they have in current liabilities which have to be paid in the short term. Lenders want to know the types of assets the company owns that could become collateral for a potential loan. Collateral is something the bank will get if the company does not pay the loan back. So collateral is usually long-term assets. What kind of buildings? How much is invested in machinery or in vehicles? Do they have land they could use as collateral? The bank's very interested in the kinds of long-term assets the company has. Then what about management? Well, management also is interested in current assets and current liabilities, but they're more interested in these amounts on a day-to-day basis. If I can't make payroll today for my employees, I have a huge problem if I'm running a company. But most companies don't have a problem today. On a day-to-day basis, they can make their debt payments. But they may see that they're going to have a problem in the next month or so because future orders have slowed down. So companies very carefully track how much cash they have on hand and other current assets so that they don't build up too much inventory if they don't have orders, or so they know if cash collections from customers are right on schedule. Management also considers the potential for borrowing money to be very important, so they try to maintain a level of debt that the owners think is wise. This is monitored continuously through a classified balance sheet. These are some examples of common current assets. Cash is what we understand the best. It includes the company's checking account and savings account, just like you or I might have. And it also includes amounts in other forms like certificates of deposit. These are short-term interest earning accounts that you can put in a bank. Accounts receivable, which we've talked about earlier in the course, arise when a company sells goods and provides services but does not collect the money immediately. Accounts receivable turns into cash as the company collects from its customers. Inventory is the company's goods that it buys with the intention to resell them. Ordinarily, companies know how long they intend to hold inventory, so they don't have too much inventory pile up that they can't sell. If I'm running a sporting goods company, I might sell winter sporting goods like skis and skates in the winter, and summer sporting goods like boogie boards and swimming suits in the summer. So I know I'm going to hold the inventory a period of time, let's say for 3 months or so. Inventory is always intended to be resold within the next year. Marketable securities are stocks and bonds the company has invested in that are issued by other companies. So my company might invest in the stock of Target Corp or IBM or Apple or Google. This is considered a current asset because I can sell the securities anytime I'd like to sell them. Finally, we have supplies as a current asset, even though they're not really very easily sold for cash. They're a current asset because they're expected to be entirely consumed by the business within a year. They're used up in an effort to generate revenue. These are some of the common non-current assets. What they all have in common is they help the company produce revenue in some way. Cars and trucks may be needed by our service staff to drive around and service our customers' products. They may be used to deliver products to our customers, or they may be used to take raw materials to production plants, for example. Machines are things that a company would use to produce products, sort products, ship products, process lumber into a sawmill, process luggage at an airport. These are some examples of machinery. Buildings may be used for a retail store or a restaurant location, or the company's offices, production plants, or warehouses. All of these uses have something to do with enabling the company to earn revenue. Finally, land refers to unimproved property the company owns that it thinks it will use or is currently using by having a building or a parking lot, for example, sitting on the land. So if we put everything together for the assets section, what we find is an order of accounts, something like this. Note that the format of the full classified balance sheet is found inside the back cover of your textbook. We have current assets first, always, and then depending on what the company has for the remaining assets, we might or might not have long-term investments in stock of other companies, but that would go next because it tends to be more liquid even if we think we're holding the stock for the long term. It's more close to cash than other things. Property, plant, and equipment is the kinds of long-term assets that we've talked about: vehicles, buildings, machinery, land. And intangible assets. These are assets that are granted by signing a contract and paying for them. Usually these are granted by either another company or by the government. Copyrights, trademarks, patents, goodwill, these are the kinds of intangible assets we might find. So let's move on now to liabilities on the classified balance sheet. Current liabilities are the debt the company expects to pay in the next year. We expect to pay our payroll. We expect to pay our rent. We expect to pay our utility bills. We expect to pay short-term notes that are due within a year. Current liabilities are all the unpaid ordinary monthly bills the company has. So the company adds up all the amounts it owes on the balance sheet in one section, so you can see all of the amounts of its current unpaid bills. Non-current liabilities are debts that are expected to be paid after the current year, but the range of time could be 2 years from now or 50 years from now. All of those non-current liabilities or long-term liabilities go in one section. Okay, so putting everything together in the liabilities section, it works a little differently than the assets section of a classified balance sheet. Note here that we simply break between current and non-current sections, or current and long-term, depending on the company's choice. Current liabilities are those, remember, that are paid off within 1 year, and non-current liabilities are those debts that will be paid beyond the next year. This concludes this lesson.